this is a new type of video I want to do. I want to run by some of my friends and see what they would say, but everybody busy because today is the Super Bowl. It is 2/12/2023, so yeah, you might see this in the future, a couple of days from now, because I doubt I'm going to get it uploaded today. But today, I want to talk about different books that I have been reading. And some that I'm currently reading. I'm just going to show y'all a few. This is it. I'm not going to put too many. I've been buying books like every other week, but I'm not about to bring out all them books. But first one I'm going to start with is this one. It is the Autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley. I think I'm reading that right. So yeah, that's what I've been reading, and it has a small quote by Spike Lee on the front of it. The most important book I'll ever read. It changed the way I thought. It changed the way I acted. It has given me courage that I didn't know I had inside me. I'm one of the hundreds of thousands whose life was changed for the better by Spike Lee. Then on the back, it gives a little bit of insight and gives some more quotes from different magazines and newspapers by The Nation, The New York Times, I.F. Stone. You get a small summary. If there was any one man who articulated the anger, the struggle, and the beliefs of African Americans in the 1960s, that man was Malcolm X. His autobiography is now an established classic of modern America, a book that expresses, like none other, the crucial truth about our violent times. So yeah, that's a pretty good summary for this book, I'll say. I want to highlight a few things about this book and what I thought was most interesting about it. And so, excuse me if you hear a lot of page turning, because I am going to be, kind of skimming through this, because it's been a while. It's been a couple months since I finished this book. And this isn't my first time finishing it. I think this is my second time. But yeah, in the different ideologies and different lessons that might be other people might not have seen that I've learned from this book. For once, I would say probably when he talks about his early childhood, I think that was a very important, in my opinion, probably one of the most important chapters of the book is going through his adolescence and his childhood, because it really shows you who he is as a person, Malcolm X, or Malcolm Little, before he changed his name to Malcolm X, finding out who he was, learning about his family, and the different things and trials and tribulations that shaped him as a person, and how his ideas kind of changed as he got older. And then when he ultimately got through into prison, that's when he started to change as a person and really had to sit down and confront his demons and the different things he's been doing. Because if you read the book, you understand that he's had these thoughts before that, something was going to happen to him. Not talking about his death later on, and just like I was talking about earlier, he's always been the type of person to be like, he does take a lot of risk and he does put himself out there so much that even he himself has to recognize that, this will ultimately lead to me being in more conflicts and being in the line of fire more than other people. So that was definitely something that I kind of thought was really important to me, especially in this book, and him learning his identity in prison, going from, being somebody, his nickname was Satan because he would, talk bad about God and why he was in the situation that he was, which is not uncommon for people to do. So that was very insightful to see. But also, I really like when he got out, the fact that, he didn't go from being Malcolm Little to the Malcolm X in the span of months. It took years of him, kind of even learning how to write, because at first he didn't have good reading and writing skills, and the fact that he taught himself, how to read and write extremely well on his own in an environment where you're locked down 23 hours a day is amazing to me. That he was able to do that, and it just goes to show you that anybody can do what they want to do, if they apply their mind to it. You know, as long as you make, and I don't know, in this society we kind of let our bodies and our minds kind of take control of our everyday life. But at the end of the day, if you want to walk outside and take off your shirt, you could do that. No one's stopping you from doing it. Now you might think what would happen if you did that, but nothing is ultimately stopping you from doing that. The reason why I say that, it's kind of, this is like this is like an invisible barrier when it comes to different, you know, things and everything that we want to learn how to do, you know, because a lot of people don't have the time and patience, or even really the patience to really sit down and learn something. And Malcolm X is not, I mean, he is an extraordinary person. You know, he is definitely one of a kind. His name is, you know, it's solidified in history, in American history especially. But like I said, he didn't walk into prison being a scholar. He didn't walk in even, I don't think he even has a high school education. So, you know, it just goes to show you that you can do anything you put your mind to. And this is back in the day where they didn't have technology, and if they did, it was very limited. You know, they didn't have the internet and stuff like that. Like you said, in the 1960s, the computers were very primitive. They were not like today's time. You had to really learn everything, even from a book. If you didn't have a book in front of you, I don't know how you was gonna learn this information. If you was gonna learn it orally, you know, from somebody else, from a teacher or something. But I'm not gonna harp on this book too much. I can talk about it all day. I like it a lot. I recommend other black, I say males, read it. Of course, black people in general, but I very much encourage black men to read this book. And towards the tail end, when he kind of gives details about the different inner workings of the Islamic culture in America, and how he came to join it, and the different things, and how they kind of stereotyped him and tried to bait him into different arguments and discussions on TV and on radio. You know, that's very important. And the fact that he was a big reason why people loved him so much, because he was unapologetic with his message. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't try to make it, you know, a certain way to please the audience. He wasn't afraid of white America, or white racist America, but really just white America, you know, because it was you know, back in the day, it was still, I don't want to say legal, but it was okay. It was an unwritten rule that, you know, if you could do things to black people, and, you know, it was okay. So back then, unlike today's time, and today's time isn't perfect either. We still got police brutality, and the judicial system is still, there's a lot of work to do, but things were worse back then. And the fact that he went out there with his chest up and his chin up, you know, that's amazing. That he had that type of fearlessness in him to even, you know, do the things he did. But that's this book. Like I said, the Autobiography of Malcolm X. I don't know if you can see that. So yeah, I recommend that book. Another book I read would be Monster by, I'm not going to attempt to say his name that he changed it to because it's a little difficult, but Monster Cody Scott. The Autobiography of an LA Game. You know, I really, really like this book. I like the way it's written. I like the way he describes, you know, I don't think about the Autobiography of Malcolm X compared to this book. This one compared to this one. I say this one is better written because it was written by the author himself. And I don't know if Alex Haley, I think he retold it. I don't think this is straight from Malcolm X's mouth. I could be wrong, but I'm not about to stop this video and go check it. I want to kind of get this video out of the way. So, yeah, Monster, you know, Sanika Shakur, I think that's how you say it. I apologize to the family if I pronounce it wrong. But yeah, this is a very, this is a big warning. I would not really recommend everybody reading this if you have, you know, you struggle with certain things, or like, you know, if you hate violence or gore, or even as extreme acts. I wouldn't really recommend reading this. It's going to be a lot of that. But it really paints a picture of a complete human being who put his heart into everything that he did, even the bad things. You know, he never went into anything half-stepping. He went in everything, you know. He jumped in everything, honestly. You know, he was a very inquisitive person growing up. He details his childhood and where he went wrong or where he, you know, and growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, times were very much different back then in terms of violence and what you can get away with compared to now. I found that really interesting, the fact that there were no cameras everywhere. There were not, in fact, that the police were even instigating some of the gang wars between different gangs. I found that very intriguing and interesting, not in a good way. But this goes to show you that, you know, everything is not so black and white. They were in cahoots with some of these gang members, and some of them would even give tips that would lead to other murders and other homicides of other gang members of the opposite side. And the fact that they would come and pick up these people, I want to say these people, I'm talking about, I don't want to say the specific gang because I don't know if they're still at odds today compared to back then, but you know what I mean. I don't want to add to the violence. But yeah, so because if you read the book, you'll learn about all the different types of rivals and different types of gangs that existed back then. You know, it's not like it's secret information, nothing like that. You probably can look it up and learn it yourself, but I recommend reading this book. You know, he really goes into detail. I never seen a person of this lifestyle really go into detail about their thoughts and the things they went through. It's very interesting to see how someone of this lifestyle deals with their extreme acts of violence and how they deal with the things that they have done or they're going to commit in the future or near future, or if they already have done it. You know, it's very raw, but also very beautiful in the same sense because he's not holding back. He's not pulling any of his punches. He's showing you his whole complete, you know, life essentially. Because and this is written very detailed. He doesn't glaze over a lot of things. He does spend a lot longer segments on different chapters of his life, but at the same time, he also gives you a complete picture by describing different things in the room, describing the people he's talking to, and the things he's going through and how it affects him in the future and later chapters of the book. Like I said, this is a very detailed book, and to even give you an example, I'm going to read one paragraph. So this is from page 79. I don't know exactly what chapter. It doesn't really say. Chapter 4, Ambush. This is the second paragraph. With each new generation of Crip and blood bangers comes a more complex system, which is now reaching institutional proportions. It is precisely because of this type of participation in the development and expansion of these groups, more customs and philosophies, that gangbanging would never be stopped from without the notion of the war on gangs being successful is as realistic as the People's Republic of China telling Americans to stop being American. When gang members stop their wars and find that there is no longer a need for their sets to exist, then banking will cease. But until then, all attempts by law enforcement to seriously curtail its forward motion will be in vain. That right there gives you kind of a light insight into how he gives his theories and gives his insight and gives his opinions on the different issues of back then and today in terms of gang violence and how it's changed and how it's going to change in the future. You know, a lot of that you really don't get nowadays, especially the regular people that don't have access to people like this. Maybe they didn't grow up in an area where gang banging exists, or they don't know anybody that's personally in the gang, so they can't really really talk to nobody or really get an insight of how someone like this thinks, because a lot of the media portrays people of this lifestyle as these terrible people that, are dangerous and should not be in society, should be locked up ultimately, which I think that leads into a whole nother conversation about prison reform and the issues with the prison system and the jail system of America, but that'll be too long of a video, and I'm already sitting at like 15 minutes, I think. But I do recommend this for definitely young black men. I think young black men should definitely read this book. I wouldn't even say when they're older, I really should say around like 14, 15, those really impressionable years is when they should probably read this book, because it can really change the way they look at things and really gives them insight how to survive in this world outside of just this lifestyle, but even when they encounter different problems, more mental, because he does go for a lot of mental tactics by the police and other people in his life, and how they try to get over on him, and try to mess him over. Because that will happen a lot on these job interviews and jobs and things of that nature. It's not only limited to this lifestyle. People are always going to try to mentally get over on you. And a lot of the different things he talks about in this book, you will subconsciously, just get better at it. Because when I read it, a lot of things that I kind of already knew, because I grew up around people that lived this similar lifestyle, but I also went in detail about how they think and the remorse they have for their victims and their families, and the polarizing thoughts they have at night. Because at the end of the day, these people are not monsters; they're human beings, just like you and I. For sure, you gotta take that into consideration. This next book, I'm still currently reading. I wanted to finish those two books first, and I'm reading another book right now that I'm almost finished with. This is Barracoon, The Story of the Last Cargo, edited by Deborah G. Plant, forwarded by Alice Walker. This is by Zora, Neale, Hurston, author of Their Eyes Were Watching God. So, this book, and that was a long ass title, this book right here, I saw on Instagram, and I wanted to get it. I don't know if that's going to focus or not, but yeah, I wanted to get this book. And on the back, it's a quote by Toni Morrison, R.I.P. to her, one of the greatest writers of our time. So, the story of the last black cargo basically goes over it's this older black man in America around, I think, the early 1900s. In fact, I can read it right here. It's a small little like detail thing right here. Okay. In 1927, Zora Neale Hurston traveled to Alabama to visit 80-year-old Cujo Lewis, a survivor of I cannot say that word, the last slaver known to have made the transatlantic journey. Illegally brought to the United States, Cujo was enslaved 50 years after the slave trade was outlawed. At the time, Cujo was the only person alive who could recount his integral part of the nation's history. As a cultural anthropologist, Hurston was eager to hear about those experiences firsthand, but the excitement elder didn't always speak when she came to visit. Sometimes he would tend to his garden, repair his fence, or appear lost in his thoughts. Hurston, persistent though, and during an intense 3-month period, she and Cujo communed over her gifts of peaches and watermelon, and gradually Cujo, a poetic storyteller, began to share his heart-tendering memories of his childhood in Africa, the attack by female warriors who slaughtered his townspeople, the horrors of being captured and held in the barracoons of another place I cannot say, for selection by American traders, the harrowing ordeal of the Middle Passage aboard the, I guess that's the ship that he came to America on, that they're saying that is I cannot pronounce that. I can spell it out for you though. Clotilda, as cargo with more than 100 other souls. The years he spent in slavery up until the end of the Civil War, and finally his role in the founding of African Town. So yeah, that's basically a quick ass summary. A bit of a long summary in my opinion, but yeah, I'm not too far into this book. I think I read about probably 100 pages, if that. So yeah. Oh, I was reading the forward word actually. So yeah, it's a very interesting book. It is a bit long. Zora Neale Hurston is not a low-level book. You know, any book she writes is definitely going to be in intense detail, and it's going to have words that you will not know. You know, like I said, I was reading this small little section right here, and even this small little section definitely had some words that I did not understand, or I had to kind of slow down a bit and read it to make sure I sounded it out right. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that book. It's very important, you know, it's a treasure really to African people in America, African Americans, because, you know, we always hear about from white people or from these documentaries about the slave trade, the transatlantic, you know, the passage, all these other things, but we never get to hear it from the source, you know, because when our grandparents or when their parents were living, if you're anywhere near the age of 24, you know, between like, you know, 18 and 30, you know, your parents, or your great-grandparents and your grandparents, you're probably either they're very old or they are no longer living. And when you're a kid, you're not thinking about any of the subjects I just named. You're not thinking about the slave trade and the horrors you had to experience when being captured over in Africa and brought over here against your will, the malnutrition on the ship, from the journey over here, the ones that died right next to you, the ones that had to be thrown overboard, all these very traumatic things that happened to really, you know, African Americans before they were African American, when they were African, you know. And it's not that long. That was in 1927. That is a long time, but at the same time it's not, because, you know, you go back 2 or 3 generations. You know, if you look at your mom, your grandmother, and then your great grandmother, she was probably alive during those times she's talking about, you know, because he was 80 something in 1927. He wasn't 30, he wasn't 40, already 80 something years old. So that goes to show you, you know, just how much history, how much time has passed. The fact that he lived to be that old, experiencing kind of the inhumane conditions he experienced when coming over from Africa over to America, or maybe even Africa over to the islands and then to America, because a lot of the slave ships did take stops in different parts. Sometimes they would pick up more slaves from different areas, like, you know, they would go to Barbados, which, well, is now called Barbados, Jamaica, you know, Haiti, the different Caribbeans. There's another small island, Saint, I think, something, so with a K, Kinks or Kanks, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there's all these different important things that are kind of lost in history, or is told through, you know, white people. It's really no way to say that. I don't have any malice against white people when I say it like that. It's just, it is what it is. Caucasian individuals, white people, you know, because when they make these documentaries, we're not making these documentaries. They're making these documentaries, and they like to skim over a lot of different details and how inhumane they treated Africans, especially coming over on that ship. So yeah, I'm getting kind of on my soapbox a little bit, but it is a very important book, and I really cherish this book. Probably one of the most important books I have in my book collection right now. I have a lot of other books that I'm not about to bring out. I haven't started them, or I might have read like a couple pages, but these 3 books are probably, if I could put them, these 3 books are very important to me. Now, I still got one more book I've been reading for like years. So I forget that microphone. And this is more of a lighthearted note. It's not written by a black person. It's a very big book, and it's a hardcover book. So, this is serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. What if? Randall Munroe, creator of XKCD. Yeah. On the back, hey, thanks for looking at my book. If you're thinking about buying it, here are some things you might want to know. Humans can't digest cellulose and paper, but if we could, eating this book will give you about 2,300 calories, including the cover. This book can't stop bullets. If you want to use it for armor, you may want a lot more than just one copy. If you have a good arm, you could probably throw this book about 45 feet. With practice, probably throw this book every 800 milliseconds, which means that if human attackers were sprinting towards you, you have about 3 to 4 chances to hit them before they reach you. If, on the other hand, you're being attacked by a coyote, its higher top speed means you have only one chance to hit it. Aim carefully. Hidden feature. Inside this book has words and pictures. It answers many other important questions, whether you could jump from a plane with a helium tank and inflate balloons fast enough to slow down and fall and survive. He gives a little outline saying yes. And whether you could hide from a supersonic windstorm in Finland, yes, but it won't help. So yeah, it's just a bunch of, basically like a book about weird questions you have like at 3 a.m. when you be in your bed, you can't go to sleep. And when you start thinking about absurd, weird stuff at like 2 a.m. It's kind of like that. I can read a page actually from it. I'm like halfway done with it, probably a little more than halfway done. I kind of pick it up when I'm bored, when I have nothing to do. But you gotta be careful, because if you don't know a lot about science, or you didn't pay attention in class, this might be a little bit daunting to you, or it might be flat out boring. So I wouldn't recommend it for people that's not into like science and stuff like that. I'm trying to see. Some of these are really long explanations, some of these are really short. It just depends on what you know. Okay. Here's this little thing in between chapters called Weird and Worrying Questions from the What If inbox. So I'm going to read a couple of these, because they're usually very short and it's easy to read. Easy to get the answer to. Given humanity's current knowledge and capability, is it possible to build a new star? What sort of logistic anomalies would you encounter in trying to raise an army of apes? If people had wheels and could fly, how would we differentiate them from airplanes? How long could a nuclear submarine last in orbit? Okay, and then he takes that question and basically gives an actual answer, and I don't think he has a TLDR, which is a too long didn't read kind of thing. You kind of just have to read the whole thing. He does have a short answer section actually. It's right. Fuck it. Back, find it. Sorry, I'm trying not to hit this microphone, and then I'm trying to. Okay. Here go another one. But what would happen if you set off a nuclear bomb in the eye of a hurricane? Would the storm cell be immediately vaporized? This question gets submitted a lot. It turns out that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the agency that runs the National Hurricane Center, gets it a lot too. In fact, they're asked about it so often that they publish a response. I recommend you read the whole thing, but I think the last sentence of the paragraph says it all. Needless to say, this is not a good idea. It makes me happy that an arm of the U.S. government has, in some official capacity, issued an opinion on the subject of firing nuclear missiles at hurricanes. So those are the type of shit you're gonna see in this book. There you go. Sorry if that hurt your ears, but it's kind of heavy. But yeah, so that's what I've been reading. There's some other books I've been reading. They're ebooks, so I didn't buy them, or they were free. So I'm gonna look up on my phone. So if I'm looking down here, I'm looking at my phone. So yeah. Oh, someone tried to call me. I'll call them back later. I'm trying to go to my Kindle thing and see. Okay, we're not gonna do that right now. So yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I read Children of the Corn by Stephen King. I'll probably just have to do a little bit of editing and edit a picture of Children of the Corn. I watched the movie and I read the book within like 5 days of each other. So I watched the movie. I thought the movie was kind of silly. That's really it. The movie was very weird. It was very, I mean, I like the atmosphere of the book. I mean, of the movie. It being like, kind of desolate. There wasn't a lot of music. Even the old man at the gas station, he was kind of like just trying to get them out of here and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, I don't know. The guy, the main protagonist, like the older guy that was in college or graduating from college, he was really making me mad. I'm not gonna lie. He almost made that movie kind of unwatchable because he was just so bullheaded. It was annoying. I'm like, bro, listen to your girlfriend. It's very obviously this talent is giving out bad vibes. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go here anyway. I'm gonna do it anyway. And let the her getting killed and hung up on a stake. And then his ass having to fucking beat up this little ass kid. It was so weird. I did not understand what the hell was going on. The book goes a lot more into detail about different things, a lot more into the relationship between the couple in the car riding through I think they were going to California, I think, because he just graduated from medical school and stuff, and she was like, I don't know, on his nuts about it. I don't know. But apparently he really didn't want her ass in the book. He really planning on breaking up with her or something, so yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh, I did read that book, but it's not anything that'll be like, I wouldn't recommend talking about that book because there's a really raunchy title and a lot of the details. I would have to go into like a show, and that's like an hour of time because I watched the show like 4 times now. So I'm not about to do that. But yeah, Children of the Corn. This other book called is about seafood. Seafood is I'm trying to think of a correct way to introduce him. He's the author of the book, obviously. But he is a author. He's an internet personality. And it's probably the best way I can put him. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book, Stillborn. It was, I think I was following him on social media, on Instagram, just type in seafood, and his page should come up. And he announced that he was writing a book. I known a little bit about him beforehand, but I didn't know that he was writing a book. So, yeah. It's like Monster, but more modern. That's probably the best way I could put it. I think he wrote it himself with like the help of an editor, and I think it was only like 1,000 pages. I don't think it was that long. Yeah, I think it was just about like 1,000 or something. Oh no, it was 147 pages. Very short book. But I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed it. I recommend it for more modern readers that don't want to read about, stuff that happened in the 80s or 90s, but want to hear more about the modern way gangbanging and street life has changed in America, especially in a more populated city like Philadelphia. It's a very interesting look at it. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy. It's only available online, so you would have to go search it up. I got mine off of Amazon. I'm gonna put a picture up here, and I'll try to put the title of all the books that I mentioned in this video in the description. But I want to make this video super duper long, so I'm probably gonna cut it short around here, but I do recommend all these books for different people. Of course, take into consideration your reading level. Read a couple pages up before you just go and purchase it. You can try to go to half price bookstore if you have that in your city or town. You can go to, different things online. You can try to search up PDFs. I really can't give any more tips on how to get books. On Amazon, if you look up used books, sometimes it'll be a lot more cheaper than what you would buy new, but from a different seller. So yeah, I gotta go to the restroom. Catch y'all on the next one. Thank you for watching. I'm out.